having these conversations is literally one of my favorite things to do, and today is no exception. Meenakshi, thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting to be able to dig into this content today. Do you want to give us a little bit of a overview of your background and what you do at Sweetgreen really quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here as well. It's a great way to kick off the year, just taking a step back and talking about just marketing and hearing all the fantastic content to date. Um, I've been with Sweetgreen for about 2.5 years. I am the VP of marketing and I lead kind of all functions within marketing. And prior to coming here, I was I spent about 5.5, 6 years at Domino's in various capacity. I led product innovation, some amount of marketing strategy and positioning, as well as digital marketing. I know you all would have spoken with Kate Trumbull before, and she is a dear colleague of mine. But I grew up before then I spent some time in the larger CPG companies as General Mills and PepsiCo, which really I believe lays the foundation of a classical way to think about marketing with consumer insights and all the structures that comes with it. So, and I've been here for 2.5 years, and honestly, Sweetgreen felt different every 6 months for various reasons. It's a company that is growing. It is so relevant right now. It's so important in terms of food and wellness, and also, with COVID, like all of us, things have shifted so quickly, and we have as well. So I'm glad to be here.
It's
And
great to have you.
yeah.
And it's quite a transition to go from Domino's to Sweetgreen in terms of size of company and the types of food that you're working on. And what I'm thinking is today we can just dive right in and get stuck into the questions. I have tons and tons that I want to ask you. I'm sure everyone's eager to hear from you. But personally, since Sweetgreen started, I have been an absolute diehard fan as a consumer, but also as a marketer. One of the things that really has always struck a chord with me is how steadfast the brand has been in sort of the core tenets and how they're articulated in the market. Would you be able to share a little bit more about what makes up the brand? What are sort of those pillars, and also how it stood up to the test of 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. And one of the key reasons that really I joined Sweetgreen is for the purpose. It's a very single-minded. We talk about it every single day. Our mission is to connect people and inspire communities to real food. And, that resonates with me so deeply, both in terms of who I am and how I approach food. And, I am vegetarian. I believe in plant-based and plant-forward. And that has been the mission of the company since our co-founders started it. And that continues to be what drives every decision we make. And when you talked about the tenets, right, it's really about that, making sure as we grow, we get better. And when I joined, Nate, who is one of the co-founders, he talked about really it's about intimacy at scale. What Sweetgreen has done really well right from the beginning is with every store that we open, it's about connecting to the communities. It's establishing those relationships with the growers. It's really figuring out who are the local folks in the community. How do you make sure your store design reflects that? And how do you grow from there? And that connection, and that's how we've built the brand advocacy, almost one store at a time, and through really strong champions of the brand from our consumers and customers. And as we scale, it's really about how do we scale that, and intimacy at scale. When it comes to talking about our food ethos, that is still the core of what drives our menu innovation and menu growth. Thinking about our impact, social impact, which really comes from number of things, right? It's access to good food. It's about education, really what goes in the food, and that comes from transparency. And beyond that, it's impacting the community and being a part of that and giving back. And so those are the core tenets. We take that into every new store that we open, every new channel of access that we come up with, and every marketing campaign. And it's about using technology and other things to really do that storytelling and do that at scale.
That's amazing. And in terms of holding true to those tenets in 2020, it's one of those things that I think we look back on and are thankful we're moving into a new year. Mm-hmm. However, I think there's a lot of learning of being able to really unpack how to stay true to those when things are rapidly changing around us. And last year was a real testament to things rapidly changing. I actually referred to it as the year of the pivot because it was one of those things that was constantly changing around us, and as marketers really being thoughtful to how we went to market, even on a daily basis, really sort of monitoring what we were putting out into the world. Can you sort of share a little bit of the journey around sort of how you not only pivoted throughout last year, but sort of naturally, you mentioned that, you know, Sweetgreen feels different and is evolving all the time. Can you sort of share a little bit more about the journey and how you're pivoting through that since you've been in the business?
Yeah, no, 2020 was just a year of acceleration and, you know, and pivot, as you put it. I would say for Sweetgreen, it was a combination of both, right? Like in a lot of ways, our North Star continues to be the mission, so that hasn't changed. And when we talked about, lucky for us, we were still focused on technology even before COVID. Like we believed in the power of technology, in really being able to coming closer to customers and connecting with them. And that was a big part of our growth trajectory and our long range plan anyway. So starting in January of 2020, we launched the platform of delivery on our own native app and native platform. So we had this way to deliver food and have a digital presence already and have that direct to consumer touch point. What I would say COVID has done is really accelerated that. Things that we were planning to do maybe in 2021, we just brought everything forward and we said, let's go try that. We launched, you know, plates, which was trying to go into a more heartier meal, trying to reach newer day parts. Really, our customers had shifted. If you think about Sweetgreen, our core used to be office goers picking up a weekday lunch. So it was more about pivoting to that need state and making sure convenience and that habituality of what Sweetgreen provides continues to stay. It's still, you know, people still wanted to felt nourished. So how do you do that now that they may not be working in the office? And part of that was we have Sweetgreen Outpost. It's a big part of our business and it's a big growth part of our business as well, where we would provide outposts in a lot of these office buildings or workspaces, whether it was a WeWork or any of the larger offices, which was very convenient for our customers who would, you know, every day they would just open their app, place the order, and outpost would show up. And given this, you know, stay-at-home order that came in with COVID, we really pivoted and we thought about what could we do with the logistics of outposts that we have. And one of my proudest things with the brand last year was really shifting to that to Impact Outpost. We were able to overnight really think about how do we take that and provide free meals to the frontline workers.
Wow.
And we did that in partnership with World Central Kitchen with Jose Andres. And, you know, to date in 2020, we were able to provide 400,000 meals to the frontline workers. And it was massive effort, but it was so quick. And that's the power of being at Sweetgreen. We knew what drives us are these tenets, right? It is about impact. It is about being relevant. It is about being part of the community. And that was the need of the hour. So we shifted and we could do that. And it didn't take layers and layers of decision making. We decided on a Thursday. By Sunday, we were in execution.
Wow.
So I would say that's that. But to, you know, in terms of how the brand responds and stays authentic and human, that is, I would say, the core of who Sweetgreen is. But you were also talking about how does that impact marketing and how do you think about that. I think to a lot of extent, like all of us, right, it's more about thinking about who our customers are and what becomes important to them. Really, it's the lunch and thinking about nourishment and people who want real, wholesome, authentic food, like still holds. It's just not an individual meal anymore. It's more about sharing with your family. Like you still lunch, but now you have to also take care of your kids at home who are homeschooling. So it's really understanding that, and how do you, and that's why when we brought in, we've introduced sides, and we've introduced some, plate and stuff like that, which really helps to meet that customer need a little bit differently.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the customer profile expanded and evolved pretty dramatically. In particular, obviously, being able to support the frontline workers is absolutely incredible. And, that is phenomenal unto itself. When you're thinking about, as you expand your footprint across America, David was mentioning earlier that there is rollout happening potentially into some additional locations. How do you think about exploring into those new territories, and sort of how technology can play a role into really understanding what that particular location needs to look like, and what that needs to be presented to the community as, so it's embraced?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that is, in the last year or so, we have about 120 restaurants in the country, and that, that's just a retail footprint. But obviously, when you think about the radius to which we deliver and provide the pickup food or outpost, we are an omni-channel business. But the 120 locations, a lot of it until that point, Manhattan was a big part of our business. And obviously with COVID and work from home, Manhattan is we all know what the story there is. Yeah. And what happened in the process is really some of our less urban but more residential stores really became the shining stars in this time. So it's more where people are and where they've migrated to. It's some of the campus stores. The students have now gone back to their homes, but they still crave their sweetgreen, and they still go to order that, right? Yeah. It's understanding that, and understanding, because we have this direct consumer connection, we really focus on customer engagement, not just acquisition. So when you think of it that way, we really track where they are, what are the things that still resonates with them in terms of our storytelling. And when we talk about where the food comes from, which farmers, and so on, so some of that we understand where they have moved. We understand what's top of mind. We in what has been an unprecedented year in a lot of ways, and really being open to that has come through in these different stores. And that is what we've taken forward as we think about where do we expand, right? Expansion has always been a part of our in our growth, right? Reaching more communities. For instance, we opened in Miami in December. And again, like how we approach that is with finding the farmers, finding something local to that. We introduced, I think it was a citrus shrimp bowl that you only get in Miami. It's thinking about that, working with local bakers and local farmers for Miami. For instance, we opened in Austin, in Denver, in Boulder, in Jersey City. So we've had a lot of expansion. A lot of that is really focused on more of urban residential versus urban office spaces primarily.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that intimacy at scale that you mentioned earlier, having food that is reflected from the neighborhood is so important in terms of being able to sort of make that an authentic experience, but still obviously with the ability to have a true omni-channel presence in how you show up for the customer or the guest.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I noticed on your website, you take a lot of care in really showcasing that transparency of the farms in which you're able to get the ingredients, but you also tell a lot of the backstories around the farmers themselves. And even though we're talking about tech today, the consumer experience and that idea of transparency is something that has truly started to resonate in marketing of late. Can you unpack a little bit for us the importance of conveying that personal connection and really sort of telling the story of where their food is coming from?
Yeah, it's really, like I said, some of the farmers that we have in the extended Sweetgreen family, they've been with us for a number of years, right? On the website, you may have seen Barry Farm. Like, I think that relationship is about 7-8 years old. And I will say the not so secret sauce of Sweetgreen is our supply chain team, and it's our incredible relationship we have with these growers. And the care they put into each of those ingredients is what makes our salads and our bowls really shine. So when we talk about, just last week, we've launched a crispy chicken salad bowl, which if you haven't tried it, it's absolutely fantastic. I encourage everyone to do so. But really the hero of that is the pickles, is the crispy rice. So when you talk about why is telling the story about the grower important, because that is the hero ingredient. That is what makes our food what it is. And it's a relationship that we have with Sweetgreen. And oftentimes when we have seasonal ingredients and we launch items which which stay for a certain season, it's using ingredients that are at the peak. And how we determine that is sometimes working with these farmers, and we know when something is going to come up, come into season. Last year we launched, or 2 years ago, we had worked with Dan Barber and we had launched coconut squash bowl, and that the seeds were planted way back, and Sweetgreen had established a relationship with them, and we knew that was coming. So it's really the part of story. It's not an afterthought. It's not you build a bowl and then you source it. Like, you sometimes really think about we follow Mother Nature's lead, as we say it. And so that comes from the growers, and that is the authentic story behind the food. And that's what customers want to know. That's what they come here for. The marketing is really telling it as is. It makes it much easier.
I love it. And allowing Mother Nature to guide the experience that you're creating really harkens back to that idea around how important it is to stay true to what holds the brand up and making it authentic. And I think the idea and the investment or commitment of Sweetgreen, planning ahead so far in advance that the seeds hadn't even been planted, and being able to project out what that meal is going to look like is really a testament to what it means for a brand to be woven into everything that a business does, and an experience that's being created. What kind of insights or feedback do you get from guests when they're hearing about these stories and they're able to have access to really the full through line of where their food is coming from?
Yeah, to the extent that if you walk into any store, we have what we call the chalkboard, and now it's getting digitized in some of our stores, but it really talks about where the food comes from for all the local farmers and so on. And to the extent that when we do any of our campaigns, sometimes if you follow our Instagram or you look at the Instagram stories, when we would go to farmers market with some of them and see how, we've built a relationship, and so have our customers and our followers. And it's really about telling those stories. And, we get a lot of feedback, and sometimes we come up with an ingredient only on the West Coast and not on the East Coast. So when, our customers write back and they wait for it, and maybe it comes a season late, and peaches may be in season in West Coast, but not yet in the East Coast in August, right? So it's really thinking about that. And once it's communicated right, some of our customers who have been loyal and who've stuck with the brand, they really start tuning into that. And they reach out and they wait for it, and they get engaged with it very deeply.
That's incredible. It sounds like the sort of counter of having that expectation of what you're going to order for lunch is switched out. And so being able to manage that and really show that that's actually a part of the brand and that's the value proposition that we're able to create is such a wonderful way to really build that ethos of letting Mother Nature guide and really managing expectations of your guests. Because people have their own habits and they like to order the same thing, but with that expectation, the habit really is what's going to be best and fresh for me that Sweetgreen's serving up. So that to me is such a cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the last thing that I would love to just dig into a little further in terms of really the formula. This is something you and I have discussed before around sort of the bifurcation of growth and brand. And really how the tech stack and the analytics and the performance on the growth side is really, it's really based on what the numbers are telling someone, whereas the brand feels a little less tangible in some cases, shapes and forms. However, based on today's discussion, it sounds to me like brand is leading growth, and the two are very deeply intertwined in how they deliver for the business. Because brand aside, Sweetgreen is obviously experiencing exponential growth and is innovating in so many different and unique ways. And to me, the thing that I take away is that brand is leading that. It is not an either or a balance. It is really at the forefront of everything that you do.
Yeah, and I think brand is leading it in how we think about it. That is the core to Sweetgreen's growth is about being staying true to the brand. But I would also say what defines a brand is a lot of what we talked about, and digital experience is one of it, right? It is about the food ethos. It is about the experience and the hospitality that we get in our stores. It is about access and convenience, which we've been able to unlock with our tech stack, whether it's delivery or outpost or pickup. It is about the ease of ordering and taking friction out of it through our incredible app and the website, and us focusing on that. And it is also the digital experience. And that, to me, that experience comes from whether it is a touch point that you get from us on an email or a paid app that you may see from Sweetgreen, or any blog that we write. It's all about that holistic brand experience, because customers don't just experience one part of the product. It's not just the price equation. It's the value. It's everything that you get. It's how easy is it to order, how conveniently can I get it, and how do I feel after that? How does the food that I eat makes me feel? So if I am taking, ultimately all of this does lead to an ROI, like I'm on the line to make sure that my return on ad spend stays positive and healthy and growing. So by no means am I saying it's a combination of art and science. We have to keep getting better at how we measure, who we talk to, and how we understand the different segments of our customer base, so we can cater to their needs and what's top of mind for them very, very clearly. But it can't be an either or, right? They need to understand the full picture. There are layers to what Sweetgreen offers. And as customers go through that journey from trial to getting engaged with it and deeper engagement to loyalty, it has to be a combination of all of that. And that's why it's not just about just growth for the sake of growth without the holistic story. I think one makes the others much stronger, and I really believe that.
Let's talk about a little bit about sort of the touch points of being able to articulate that story. Obviously, the brick and mortar doors that where you're offering is available is one sort of space to create. What are some of the other touch points that you've woven into your communications to be able to tell those stories? Because story can be told in so many different ways, shapes, and forms.
Yeah.
What are some of the sort of even surprises of how to tell a story that lands with the guest in a unique or interesting way?
Yeah. It looks like, I mean, there are some new ways to do that every day, but for us, I will say our emails, our customers are very engaged group, and the kind of engagement and advocacy we have for our emails and people wanting to hear from us is high. It's about our it's whether it's our Instagram or putting out a detailed, authentic note on a Medium blog, or it is in store. But in store, it's not just the store. We do events around there, pre-COVID, but we really talk to the right communities when we open a store, which we do that even now. Is we do tastings with our customers. We invite our customers to invite their friends in the new store that we open. It is about that, taking them along the journey. And so I will say there is a lot of that, in the beginning growth part of Sweetgreen was all about community marketing. And that is some of that community led, but now digitally accelerated thinking has stayed with us. And we tap into that, and that's been very effective.
Absolutely. I'm curious in terms of, it keeps sitting with me, this intimacy at scale. Like, I love that so much because it sounds like such a tough thing to do. But if you can land that sweet spot of being able to do it, that's really what a customer is going to gravitate towards, and really where the business wins in terms of that digital acceleration. And before you launch in a new market, how do you explore that in terms of, I love the idea of inviting people to tastings and allowing them to bring their friends and family. Are there tools that you use from a technology standpoint to be able to sort of test into that before the investment is made within the community more so than anything?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? Like, in terms of a digital presence, we know our customers. We have a good customer engagement platform that we have invested in, that we learn from constantly. We understand our customer cohorts very, very clearly in terms of both, not just demographic, but psychographically what moves them, right? It's a mindset model. And with that, we seek out lookalikes, whether it is through our publisher partners or through our own data, first party and second party data. We really try to understand what would resonate. But it's not just about what has worked for Sweetgreen, but it's also really learning about that new market very distinctly. What, we understand, say, a Denver, Colorado is very driven by being outdoors, and that's a lifestyle. So understanding what, and Miami is kind of art and high food culture is a big part of that community. So it's really trying to match and balance who Sweetgreen is, but also what that community is seeking, and how do you connect that. And we really take a good deep look at that and spend a lot of time before we show up. It's not just here Sweetgreen, it's really your Sweetgreen is growing, and how do we build it with you.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And you mentioned sort of that the community marketing is such a key part, but being able to really pull up through sort of the above the line broader communication channels.
Yes.
How do you make sure that you protect the organic, really authentic nature of that community marketing, and being able to sort of go up a few orders higher to that traditional above the line communications to expand awareness and generate interest? How do you make sure you don't lose that and make sure it feels still authentic and present in everything that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good balance. It's a tough balance, right? Like, it's not that we have done above the line. We have talked about brand awareness in the past too, but it's really thinking about the story before you think about the medium, right? With David Chang, my example was right when we were talking earlier too. We had a big campaign with him, and it was a big collaboration with one of the most mainstream, popular, incredible chef, David Chang. It was also about highlighting an ingredient called kelp, which was about sustainability. So if that is a story, then you think about, if that's the narrative, where does it resonate? We worked with New York Times Tea Brand Studio for that, right? Like where we want to be able to tell authentic stories about the brand and about the offering and about the product that sets the tone, and then we pick the medium. And oftentimes, and I've seen this in the past, in my past as well, we always think about we often fall in the trap of thinking about a 30-second commercial first before the story.
Yeah.
And it might be because we don't have, like, we're coming from a place where it's not such massive budget. So we really have to think clearly. But I do think even when we get there, as we are growing, we set the story first and then the medium next. And as long as we have that discipline, I think we'll hit the right side of the balance.
Yeah. And that's such a hard balance to really stick to, because you're absolutely right. Originally, it was always sort of the methodology was you start with TV and you waterfall all the way down, and you fit that story in once you've thought through the 30-second ad. So I love that idea around leading with the story first and then identifying how it articulates across the channels that make the most sense and really resonate with your audience.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.